Get ready to get in the game. Stretch, strengthen, live, and thrive. You can be a winning athlete in the game of life. It's the Peel Appeal with author and corrective exercise specialist Matt Peel.
Hey, this is Matt Peel with the Peel Appeal podcast. I hope you're having a great day today, wherever you're at, because I'm so excited for today's episode. Interviewing a gentleman here who will definitely rock your world on keeping you on track with what you do in your health, your fitness, your wellness, because part of the Peel Pill podcast, as you know, we're talking about facts and science and what is actually truth out there, not just social media nonsense, and things that you can take back to your life that is where you're at now to improve yourself. Because at the end of the day, right, we want to be the best athletes in the game of life that we can. And that's why I'm so excited today to talk with the founder of Motivational Check. And he actually still has an AOL email account. I cannot believe that, but it's pretty fantastic. And so I want to welcome the program today, founder of Motivational Check, Terry Tucker. Terry, how are you?
I'm great, Matt. Thanks for having me on. I'm real looking forward to talking with you.
Yeah, me too. Me too, man. You've been a Division I college athlete. You've worked with marketing execs, a SWAT hostage negotiator, hospital administrator. Man, you've been a basketball coach. You're an ongoing cancer warrior. 12 years in your healing process here. So you've got a lot going on. In addition to writing Sustainable Excellence, 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. So tell us a little bit first about like why did you get into Motivational Check? What kind of got that going for you?
Motivational check was a phrase that was given to us when we were in the police academy. And it was given by our defensive tactics instructor. And this guy was, I've got a friend that went through SEAL training, and I'm not saying that what we did at police academy comes anywhere close to SEAL training. It doesn't. But this guy was, we're going to go out, we're going to run down to this apartment building. They got this great big fountain out in front, and we're going to get in the fountain and we're going to do push-ups and sit-ups in like 3 inches of water, and then we're going to run back to the, this was that kind of guy. And he gave us that phrase, motivational check, that if you were just having one of those days where, man, nothing's going right, I feel terrible, I hurt mentally, physically, emotionally, you could just scream out that phrase, motivational check. And the rest of the class would respond. We were the 84th recruit class with a loud 84, just to let the person know, hey, you're not alone. We're all hurting, but we're going to get through this together. It was more of a team kind of approach. So when I was looking for a name for my company, it was just Motivational Check, just seemed to keep coming back over and over and over again. That's where the name came from. And I've had it now for I think 3 years.
That's awesome. Because we always wonder, how does someone come up with names? Where is it? Like we think like Domino's Pizza. What the hell does a domino have to do with a pizza? Right? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. But yet it's, when you think about delivery, right? Domino's.
Domino's.
But yeah, pizza and the domino, no connection. But there is for that now. So that's awesome. That is awesome stuff. So you wrote a book, Sustainable Excellence, 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. So what was kind of the reasoning behind that? I wrote a book, The Athlete in the Game of Life, a few years ago. So just curious to know what was your motivational check for that.
I never wanted to write a book, never expected to write a book. There's kind of an old joke that says when we talk to God, it's called prayer. When God talks to us, it's called schizophrenia. So, God has never said, hey, Terry, write a book. But I think what God has done, and this has happened to me other times in my life, where he puts enough people in my path, start making the same suggestion over and over. You should write a book. You should write a book. You should write a book. And I think I'm old enough now, maybe a little more mature, that when that happens, I kind of notice it. So Motivational Check was really born out of 2 conversations I had. One was with a former player. I coached girls high school basketball. We lived in Texas. This player had moved to the area in Colorado where my wife and I live now with their fiance. And the 4 of us had dinner one night. And I remember saying to her after dinner that I was excited that she was living close and I could watch her find and live her purpose. And Matt, she got real quiet for a while. And then she looked at me and she said, "Well, coach, what do you think my purpose is?" I said, "I have absolutely no idea what your purpose is, but that's what your life should be about. Finding the
Right.
reason to put on the face of this earth. And there is a reason, using your unique gifts and talents and living that reason." So that was one conversation. And then I had a young man in college reach out to me on social media and say, "What do you think are the most important things I should learn, not to just be successful in my job or in business, but to be successful in life?" And I didn't want to give him that, get up early, work hard, help out, sort of the cliches that we all know. So I took
Right.
some time and took some notes and eventually had these 10 thoughts, these 10 ideas, these 10 principles. And so I sent them to him. And then I stepped back and I was like, well, I got a life story that fits underneath that principle, or I know somebody whose life emulates this principle. So, as part of my cancer journey during the COVID pandemic, I had my left leg amputated. And while I was healing during that process, it was like 4 or 5 months, I sat down at the computer every day and I built stories. And they're real stories
Yes.
about real people underneath each of the principles. And that's how the book came to be.
Crazy that you said during COVID, right? Because that's when I wrote mine. Was during COVID, and I went to a marketing conference in Orlando in it was 20, like 18, maybe 19. And they just talked about differentiate yourself. I mean, straight up, how can you be different in your marketplace, right? Write a book. So with COVID funds that are out there and I had the idea, all right, let me write a book. Let me write a book. And I think I came up with the title, The Athlete in the Game of Life, before. And then there was this program through Advantage Media, and I just put it all together, got the loan and did everything. And it's like, boom, now I have a book. It's called a hook book. But yeah, it's yes, it differentiates yourself, but then yeah, you're right. You also have these ideas out there that you want to share with someone, and there's only so much that we can do speaking one on one or even in groups. But here's an opportunity to help get your purpose out there. So
Yeah, it really, and I think I've probably given away more books than I've actually
oh
sold.
yeah, yeah, we're not getting rich on it.
Exactly, sure.
That's for sure. In fact, that's one thing that, as I said, look, if you're trying to make money from selling your book only, man, you hope you don't know how to dance and sing because you're gonna make more doing that
Yeah.
than for just selling the book.
You better have a good publicist. That's all I got.
So when you're going through your cancer and you had your leg amputated, right? So obviously that puts a big limit on things you can do to keep yourself kind of healthy. So what did you do and what have you been doing to still maintain some type of physical condition for yourself?
Yeah, a lot of it has been sort of self-education. One of the diagnostic tools my doctor used to use to check the progress of my cancer was called a PET scan. And that basically involves injecting radioactive sugar into you, with the idea being that cancer cells have a higher metabolism. So they're going to pick up the sugar at a higher rate than the other cells around it. And that's what glows on a scan. Well, nobody ever told me this, but I thought, well, if cancer likes sugar that much, maybe I ought to limit the amount of sugar that I'm taking into my body. So I don't do desserts. I don't do soda. I don't do alcohol. I don't do bread. I don't. I'm not 100% keto, but I try to do fruits and vegetables, proteins, things like that. And I find that helps me. I have a better. I'm treated every 3 weeks at the hospital every day of that week. And so it really beats me up physically,
Yeah.
emotionally, like that. So having good food in my body is important. Getting enough sleep. I can't recommend, and I'm sure you know this. I mean, this is what you do. Sleep is one of those underrated, I guess, things that, growing up, we didn't realize how important rest, recovery, and things like that was.
Yes.
And sleep is
Yes.
a big part of my regime. And I do, I do push-ups like on the counter instead of getting down on the ground because I only have one leg. I just find ways to adapt. I have bands I use. I have all kinds of things like that. And I'm 6'8". I've got a brother 6'7" that pitched for the University of Notre Dame. another brother who's 6'6" who was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the National Basketball Association. And whenever we get together, we're like, God, if we knew about nutrition and rest and recovery and better ways to work out, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when we were kind of coming up as kids, we would have been so much better athletes, than we were. And we were all pretty good. We all played in college, and my one brother played professionally. So it's just exercise, sleep, and eating, are kind of the trifecta as far as I'm concerned. You've got to have those things in addition to all kinds of other things, the emotional support, the love,
Right.
the carry, the gratefulness and things like that. All of those things I think are important to have in a quality life.
You're 100% correct. And your parents were just fairly athlete factories, athlete factory, because they just pumped out four D1 athletes and a pro. So
Yeah. I got no sisters, God help, but it's funny because my wife and I have a daughter. I remember when we went to the OBGYN and the doctor's like, would you like to know the sex of the baby? And we were like, sure. It's like, well, you should buy pink. And I was like, oh, no. You need to keep it in there until it's done. I have no idea how to raise a girl whatsoever. But my daughter, unfortunately or fortunately, got my height and is 6'2", has an NBA 3-point shot, and played basketball at the Air Force Academy. So
it continues, man. It continues. So, which is a great segue, because as you talked about eating right, getting some exercise, and going through adversity. So you have these 4 truths that you develop to help people, guide them and support them as they go through their journey. So talk a little bit about the first one: control your mind, or it will control you.
yeah, I used to, well, I was asked, are the truths any one more important? And I used to say, no, I think they're all equally important. But the more I've read, the more I've studied, the more I think this one, that's controlling your mind, or it will control you, really is the most important thing, the most important of the 4 truths. You mentioned I went to the Citadel, which is a military college in Charleston, South Carolina. And one year we had a president by the name of James Stockdale. And Stockdale had been a naval aviator and had been shot down and spent 8 years in the infamous prisoner of war camp called the Hanoi Hilton during the Vietnam War. And actually ended up winning the Medal of Honor for his actions as a prisoner of war. I didn't spend a lot of time around. He was the president of the college. I was just a cadet. But I remember
Correct.
being at an event where someone asked him, who are the people that survived that brutality, that torture, that abuse? And he said, well, let me tell you who didn't survive. He said, it wasn't the big, strong, tough guys who thought that they could handle any kind of abuse or torture. This next one that he said really kind of floored me. He said, the other group that didn't survive were the optimists. He said, those were the people that thought they would be let go or rescued by Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter. And he said, when they weren't let go or rescued, he said, those people died of a broken heart. He said, the people that survived were the people who understood what they could control, which according to Stockdale was basically the breathing in our lungs and the thoughts in our minds. Everything else was the discretion of the enemy, and controlled it. And I think that's such an important part. I think a lot of times where we go off the rails is we try to control everything. I've got to control all this stuff. And I find an easy way, and I do this when I get in that situation, is just take a piece of paper and, whatever the issue is, write down everything that's bothering you, everything that's concerning you on that piece of paper, get everything out on paper, and then go through and cross out everything you have no control over. And whatever's left on that paper, that's where you put your focus. That's where you put your effort. So controlling your mind is an incredibly important part of athletics, of being a prisoner of war, of running a company, of doing anything like that.
For sure. And then Napoleon Hill talks about that in Think and Grow Rich. That's one of his foundational pieces is, control your brains, which then I think leads into your second piece very well, because we all go through it as we're trying to control our minds. And why are we trying to control our minds or control you? Because we have to deal with pain. We have to deal with discomfort. And everybody has it in all areas of life, right? What Jim Rohn says, the seasons, right? Changing the seasons, right? We all going to go through winters in life. financial, emotional, personal, whatever it is. You can't always have just spring and summer. So talk a little bit about embracing the pain and discomfort as we have various winters in our life.
Yeah, I mean, our brains, our mammalian brains are hardwired to avoid pain, discomfort. They don't like it. Get away from it. The problem with that is the only way you're going to grow, the only way you're going to improve, the only way you're going to get better is if you step outside those comfort zones and you do things that make you uncomfortable. My players will tell you when I was coaching girls' high school basketball, I used to constantly remind them that they needed to become comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Right.
And, there's that old saying, and I wish I would have said this, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. We're all going
Yep.
to experience pain in our lives. But what do you do with that pain? Do you use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual? Or do you wallow in it and feel sorry for yourself and want other people to feel sorry for you? I'm really going to date myself now, but back in 1976, it was our country's bicentennial celebration. It was
Yeah.
also the year of my 16th birthday, but we don't have to talk about that. It was a U.S. gold winning Olympic swimmer by the name of Shirley Babishaw, who had one of the greatest, I think, simplest quotes that I ever heard. And this is what she said: winners think about what they want to happen, losers think about what they don't want to happen. So winners can override their negative brains and focus on the things that want to occur. Losers can only focus on the negative aspects of competition, can't see the value pursuing a goal or a dream. So, a lot of times if you got that pain, instead of running from it, take it, dump it inside you, burn it as fuel, use it as energy to make you a stronger and more resolute individual.
That's awesome. You're 100% correct on that. And I love it. I love it. So then I was 1 year old, by the way, in 1976. So at least I was alive.
You really feel old now. All right.
Hey, at least I was alive. How many people probably in interviews are like 76? Let's see. I was born in 83. So
I was 1 year out of college when you were born. So, okay.
but yes, I am, as we record this, I'm 49 years old. So hit the big number next year. Soon. So we get number three of one of your four choose, right? So talking about that as we're getting older, we're not, and we've got to start thinking, well, what is kind of legacy, right? So what you leave behind is what you leave in the hearts of other people.
Yeah. This is, this is kind of the legacy truth, the way I look at it. And most of us either grew up with or have heard about Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers on his television show, Mr.
Right.
Rogers' Neighborhood, educated so many children on public television, including myself. There's a great,
Too.
YouTube, there you go. Okay. So there's a great story about Fred Rogers when he died. Not that he died, but the story about when he died, that his family was going through his effects and they found his wallet. And inside his wallet was a scrap piece of paper on which Mr. Rogers had written 4 simple words: life is for service. Man, I've seen so many people in my life that sort of, they feel that they're born empty. And that when they get out of college or high school or whatever it is, when they get out of school and they get into life, whatever that looks like for them, that they feel that their job is to fill up their empty cell. I've got to make the most money. I've got to live in the nicest place. I've got to drive the nicest car, have the best family, and have all the latest gadgets and gizmos. And what I found is it's just the opposite. It's not about what you give. It's about, or excuse me, it's not about what you get. It's about what you give in life. So your job in life should not be to fill yourself up, because you'll never fill yourself up. There'll always be the next thing, or the one, it's the newest phone or the newest iPad or whatever it ends up being. And there'll always be that next thing. But if you spend your life, instead of filling yourself up, emptying yourself out with your unique gifts and talents, it's amazing how that paradigm shift in your mind changes your whole perspective on life. It's not what I get. It's what I give to other people. And that's really, I think, what our legacy is in life. And I'll leave you with this quick story. There's a psychology professor at the University of Chicago does this with his students. He makes them go out and get on a bus. And the idea is in 3 questions, you want to be deep with somebody. So first, you get on a bus, first question, hey, how you doing? I'm fine. How are you?
Right.
Question 1. Question 2, and I'm making this up. What do you do for a living? I'm a doctor. Okay. And then question 3, have you always wanted to be a doctor? No, I grew up on a farm. I wanted to be a vet, but X, Y, and Z happened. Or yes, my mom died when she was 40 and she was a doctor and I really miss her. So I became. Now you're deep with another human being. I mean, Matt, 100 years from now, nobody's going to remember you and I were here. But the
Right.
relationships that we have today, those deep connections with people, that's what keeps me going.
And then, which is perfect in your last one there, right? As long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. And I think as long as we continue, as you were saying, as long as we continue to give, then we can never be defeated because it's a satisfying feeling to give, whatever it is, give of your time, give of a couple bucks in your pocket or whatever it may be. It makes you feel better than even receiving.
Yeah. Yeah. It really does. And there's a great story happened back in the 1950s at Johns Hopkins University here in the United States. And there was a professor there that was doing an experiment with rats. And he wanted to, it's a pretty simple experiment. He wanted to see how long the average rat could tread water. And the average rat treaded water for about 15 minutes. And just as those rats were getting ready to drown, he reached in, grabbed them, pulled them out, dried them off, and let them rest for a while. And then he took those exact same rats and put it back in that exact same tank of water. And the second time around, on average, those rats treaded water for 60 hours. Think about that. 15
Wow.
minutes. Yeah. It's not like, your business is going to go under, or your marriage is going to fail, or you're going to flunk a test. You're going to die.
Yeah.
Time around 60 hours, which taught me 2 things. Number 1, the importance of hope in our lives. But the second thing was just how much more our physical bodies can handle than we ever thought they could. I mean, we give up, we give in long before, and I'm going to come back around to that first truth, controlling your mind, because our mind tells us this hurts, this is uncomfortable, stop. Now, don't get me wrong. I think we all have a breaking point, but
We
I
do.
think the breaking point is so much further down the road than we ever give ourselves credit for.
You're right, man. Motivational check, right? Motivational check.
There you go.
Awesome, Terry. So as we wrap up here, what are you doing next? Where can people find you? How can they book you?
Yeah, I mean, I have a Motivational Check is the website, motivationalcheck.com. You can go there, leave me a message, get access to my social media accounts, look at the other podcasts I've been on and things like that. You can book me there also to speak. And the next thing I'm doing is, the 10 principles don't include these 4 truths we just talked about, but I always felt I wanted to write another book that included those. So that's really where I'm putting my effort right now. I've got a first draft. So now I'm cleaning it up and hopefully we'll approach the publisher sometime early next year.
That's fantastic. That is fantastic. Well, Terry, thank you very much for being on the Peel podcast. Great time interviewing, man.
Enjoy it, Matt. Thank you very much for having me on.
Awesome. You're welcome. So as we wrap up, remember to go to the Peel. Actually, we are the Peel podcast. They do this live and record, and that's why we screw up, and it's okay. So The Athlete in the Game of Life is now available on audiobook. So go to Amazon. You can get the hard copy, or you can listen to me actually narrate my own story. So that's pretty cool. So until next time, this is Matt Peel with the Peel podcast, and I will see you later.
Are you ready to get in the game? Get personal help, sign up for our newsletter, and pick up your copy of Athlete in the Game of Life, the book, all at mattpeel.com. Thanks for listening.